The Truth About Marketing. Super stoked. I have my guy Casey Cooper here today. He's the founder of One Vision Detail, which is a detailing service for high-end luxury vehicles throughout Arizona. Works with athletes, celebrities, you name it. Casey, stoked to have you, man.
Hey, thank you, my man. Appreciate you having me on.
Right on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, how you got this going, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so originally grew up in Tucson, Arizona, smaller town in Arizona, southern Arizona, and always just loved cars. Was always at the drag strip and hanging out with all the local people. And funny enough, my first job was at a car wash, and 12 years later, I decided that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tucson, my alma mater, U of A. Bear down.
Oh yeah, Wildcats.
Yeah, I live in a area full of Sun Devils, so I got to shout out the Cats when I can. All right, so every time we do the show, we start with a lightning round, right? It's 5 to 7 questions. Just shoot it from the hip. No wrong answers. All right, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite social channel?
Instagram.
Least favorite social channel?
Snapchat.
Brand or person with good marketing?
Matt Morgan.
Brand or person with bad marketing?
Oof. It's popular, but Bud Light.
That's literally so everyone's going there. Favorite influencer or business leader?
I would say Ed Milet.
All right, and then brand or person you'd like to work with the most?
Work with the most, Wires Only. I've worked with him before, and I like to continue it.
Awesome. Yeah, he's picked up quite a bit. He's got a hell of a show on. I think it's streaming now. It's not Netflix, but he's streaming somewhere.
Discovery Plus, I think.
Discovery Plus. Yeah. It's awesome. Shout out to him. He's made a hell of a brand for himself. So.
Oh, it's nuts.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So you talked a little about you worked at a car wash. 12 years later, you started one. So what made you, or when did you decide to start this mobile detailing?
Originally, I was working in Old Town Scottsdale at all like these nightclubs and bars and everything. And one night, me and my brother were driving home and got rear-ended by a drunk driver and got a whole bunch of money from it. And we were like, dude, why work for the man and when we could work for ourselves? And I knew someone that had started one a long time ago. And so we franchised his business first. It didn't end up working out, but that's how we ended up getting into it.
Okay. So that's how you kind of cut your teeth. That's one way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
And so when you were getting started, what were maybe like kind of the challenges? Again, like I like to, for our listeners and stuff, talk about things that, people want to talk glitz and glamour and, oh, this is so great. And I work for myself, but clearly it's hard. Starting a business is not easy. Otherwise everybody would do it. So, when you were getting started, what were some challenges you had? What can people expect in this kind of industry?
Yeah, originally when I started, it was probably about 6 years now ago, and the biggest thing at the time was people didn't know about it. They didn't know, you could just come to me and wash my car. So that was like a big hurdle of like sharing the information and letting people know, like, hey, you don't have to go to the car wash anymore. It comes to you. We have all the equipment and everything, and then also a lot of people hate like, oh, I got a Lamborghini, you can't wash my car out in the sun.
Right.
So you had to, convince them of that as well.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things, obviously we talk about it all the time in business, that like one of the most valuable assets is time, right? And so people are like, oh, I got to get in my car, then I go down to the car wash. And, and then not only that, there's this idea that, again, so the more high-end cars that you're working with, like, I don't want it going through a machine. I don't want it being touched by a bunch of random people. It's like 8 people with a rag touching my car. Like, I don't want that either, right? You want this like high-end detail. And so I think there's a huge market for that, especially in Scottsdale. We see all kinds of nice cars. So, when it comes to that, are you exclusively marketing to, high-end vehicles or reaching out to those customers, or like, will you do a Honda Civic?
I will do a Honda Civic. I just don't advertise it at all.
Yeah.
They actually, surprisingly enough, the lower end vehicles pay a lot more than the higher end vehicles, because the higher end vehicles are clean. They're dusty.
They're already.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're probably, presumably you have some, people who are selling a car and they're like, I need a full detailed, make it look as nice as possible so I can get top dollar for this.
Oh yeah. It's ridiculous. Sometimes you'll have like a Honda Civic or a minivan or something that hasn't been washed in 10 years, and
Oh God.
oh, I'm getting ready to sell it. I want a new one, and oh, it's disgusting. It's horrible.
Yeah,
Some
I hear
things.
that. And then you're really, really earning your dollars. So tell us a little bit about, what it's like catering to that high end of the market, right? So there's
Yeah.
very different motions. I've talked to some people on this show where they're, direct to consumer or even just providing a service where it's more for everybody. And then
Hmm.
there's some others that are like really high end or high ticket items, right? So what's it like
Right.
working with that segment of business?
It's a little overwhelming at times, but I would have to say it's definitely beneficial because it doesn't even matter about the business at that point and the cars and stuff. When you're working with those type of clients, it's more about building relationships. Because building the relationships with those type of people, they're not on their phones, they're not on their, watching TV and stuff. So it's a big deal for them because then all their friends and clients, they all have the same cars and houses and stuff. So yeah, the business works, and you want to make sure the car looks good, but ultimately you're bending over backwards to make these high end people happy. You
Sure,
know.
sure. I mean, your net worth is your network, right? Or network is
Oh
your net
yeah.
worth type of deal. But when it comes, so like you said, I mean, one of the famous lines that's out there, right, is you never
Hmm.
see like a Rolex or a Lamborghini or whatever advertised like on TV, right? Because
Oh yeah.
these people don't watch TV. So it's interesting, like what ways do you go out aside from networking, right? Like you said, hey, I do a good job for somebody, they introduced me to somebody. But what other ways are you kind of like reaching out or trying to get new clientele from a marketing perspective?
The biggest thing is Instagram, and then other than Instagram, I go around, when I have some extra free time, and I go into the rich neighborhoods or whatever, and I look for specific cars, and I'll put my card on there, or if I see someone out. The biggest thing a lot of people are scared of is walking up to people. It's
Yeah,
it's actually the easiest thing to do. Oh, I know you. I seen you on Instagram. Like, my name's Casey. I own a detail company. Maybe they
right.
won't call you, but they know your name now.
Yeah,
So that helps a
yeah,
lot as well.
absolutely. I
But
mean, that's a big deal. We talked about it. Someone else I had on talking about cold calling, right? Like people just don't
yeah,
want to get on the phone. They don't want to talk anymore. But like for your example, and I think that's also great too, is just good old fashioned like guerrilla marketing. Like you go to a Cars and Coffee. There's a bunch of nice cars. You walk
yep,
up. You're like, hey, by the way, I own a detail shop. Would love to take care of your car someday. Um,
exactly. Yep. Oh yeah.
so that's super. That's really valuable too, though. Like I think people forget. Another friend that I have, their company Simply Noted, they take care of handwritten notes for people,
Hmm.
and that's a lost art. Like and it's a lot people spending the time or the resources right to do that. I think that's
Oh
really
yeah.
important, and it sends like a unique message to the clients or to your potential clients, that you're going that extra mile. All right.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Okay, so we all go through it, but what's a time that you hit a wall or something really difficult happened with the business and you had to get through it?
Yeah. So there's quite a few times I've had that happen, and the biggest one that would stand out would be when we tried to partner up with I guess you would say another local entrepreneur that wanted to be in the automotive industry. Um, he at the time wanted us. We saw him as someone that could help us get to the next level from where we were at. So we had jumped into business with him real quick, without thinking. We were young entrepreneurs. We didn't, really look too much into it. And it ended up not working out. And the way it ended up not working out was such an immediate action that it was like overnight that we had to completely throw our entire business away and restart like within 24 hours.
Wow.
Um, and that happening, it even poured into our personal lives. We had to move houses that same night, the same shop. We had to pack all of our shop, and it was crazy. But for 6 weeks after that, me and my brother we were living in a warehouse. We rented some warehouse in the ghetto of Phoenix, and we lived in there on the floor, and for like 6 months we saved up enough, and then we got a house and another shop, and then just couldn't give
Wow.
up. Yeah, that was
That's
tough.
incredible. But I think stories like that too are, people want to talk about it or pretend, but like you got to be about it, right? And so for you to
Oh
actually sleep on the floor of a warehouse or,
yeah.
a shop, that's commitment, that's a drive. So like what,
Yeah.
and it would take a lot for somebody to do that. So like what made you say we're going all in, this is what we're doing? Like how did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Um, Well, at that point, we were pretty much at $0. We did, we spent our investment on trying to franchise the first business that didn't work out. And so we kind of were just, this is it. It's either this or we're moving back to mom's house. Um, so we did whatever it took, and we made flyers. We ended up going into every single mailbox in, Scottsdale and Paradise Valley zip codes, and it
Wow.
took a couple of weeks, but we hit every single house.
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Guerrilla marketing at its finest. I mean, again,
Yep.
there's nothing that repeats that kind of grind and hustle. And, for Scottsdale in general, there's a lot of people out here, again, great ideas, have the aspirations to be an entrepreneur or business owner, but
Yeah.
actually putting in the work and doing that kind of stuff and having that hustle and grit and, determination, hats off to you.
The hardest
That's
part.
definitely, yeah, it's
Oh
not,
yeah.
not for everybody. That's for sure.
Something crazy actually helped me a lot was Andy Frisella's 75 Hard
Okay.
when he came out. Because then me and my brother did that together, and we were just like, put our heads down and let's work, and it actually helped a lot.
And we, again, one of my other guys that was on here, David Johnson, so he's part of that syndicate that they do, right? So it's Andy Frisella, I think Ed Milet, right? There's a few of them, right, that run that. And I think, again, going back to the principles of that, it's like you just put your head down and grind. Like when you're doing that, when you're focused on your business, when you're not, out partying and drinking and wasting time, like it's pretty hard to screw up. You know what I mean? Like it's a good formula for success. And so, yeah, hats off to them too for creating like a really good just kind of framework for people to kind of reset, get focused, buckle their, tighten up their buckles and get to work. So, I think another thing that we talk a lot about on here is the different ways that people leverage social media. So you talked about Instagram and things like that. Now, are you paying for advertising? Or are you doing anything like that? Or is it mostly like organic outreach? Are you, hitting DMs? Like, what are you doing with that?
I'm doing everything now at this point. For the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't spend a dollar on any advertising. It was all word of mouth and like guerrilla marketing, like we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But up until about the last 12 months, we've been pushing a lot of advertising on like TikTok and Instagram. We even had a little billboard for a minute, which helped a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, so Instagram's probably the biggest one, obviously, just because people are, the younger generation's always looking on it when they have 2 seconds to do nothing.
Yep.
So that helps a lot. But that's probably our biggest one we spend money on.
Yeah, I mean, going to where people are, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot better than social media these days. The amount of people browse on their phones and
it's ridiculous.
So right now, what is kind of your goal and also the strategy behind it for growth now, right? So you said, okay, we're at nothing, at $0, sleeping on the floor of a shop. Now you've got a shop, you've got a house, you've grown, you're starting to put money into ad dollars. What's kind of your goal or growth plan now moving forward?
Moving forward, so we have two sides of the business. One's the shop side of the business, and then one's the mobile side, obviously, where we go to people's houses and maintain their cars after it's been like fully detailed.
Mm-hmm.
So the advertising for that is mainly to push the mobile side, because we want to grow, like have multiple vans and stuff and units on the road. Right now we're at 3. We just added another one about 2 weeks ago. And then the shop side of things is more for like protection of vehicles. So we want to grow that side for clear bra, ceramic coatings, window tint. Maybe a project here and there where we customize some things, but mainly the mobile side of it, because that's, Phoenix is actually the biggest land city in the United States. So try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, a lot of people into like how they're looking, how their car looks, just appearances, all that, keeping up with the Joneses. So
it's turned into a culture. It's like a haircut now. People get their car wash every Friday. Like, it's crazy.
Which is good. So I was just actually going to get into that. Do you actually have customers that are like on a residual plan? I don't know if you've actually formalized anything, but like, I mean, I'm sure you have people that just say, hey, come every Friday or come every Wednesday.
Yeah, it kind of just naturally happened. Most of these people have like, I'm looking at a car on the back of my screen right now. This guy's probably one of the wealthiest guys in Arizona, but he'll call me. He's in London, and he'll be like, hey, I'll be home on Thursday. I want my car washed. So
right.
And it's like every week. It's like, I don't know when the call's going to come, but it comes.
Which is also, that's a blessing and a curse because like there's business that comes in randomly that's nice, but it's also very hard to forecast your business, right? So like if you
Exactly.
had somebody who wanted to buy it or they're like, well, what's your revenue? It's like, well, 1 month it could be this and the next month it's that, right? So like I
Yep.
think that in this industry can be very difficult as well, right?
That's a
And I
big challenge. Yeah.
yeah. I like I mean even same goes for people who like get their hair done, right? There's people you're not going to have a residual charge on your card every Friday for getting your haircut. Like there's going to be Fridays that you miss an appointment or you know what I mean? So like
Exactly.
it's almost the same type of deal, right? Kind of hard in
Oh
that
yeah.
service-based industry.
That's how I had to separate it. I have like normal cars on routine schedules every week that are local people, people that aren't going to be going out of town. And then the celebrities and the higher end people, those are kind of the randoms that you're like, when they come, they come.
Yeah, I hear that. Now, you know, you talked about that about like there's a guy that travels super wealthy. Give me an example. We'll do both of like a really good client, like, and it doesn't have to be by name or anything, but just somebody that you like that you love. That it's like these are the great type of clients. These are the ones we want. And
Oh
then
yeah.
the ones where you're like, this client's terrible. I hate it. Like we do it, but I don't like it.
No, yeah, definitely. So I guess I could use that same guy as an example. He's just perfect customer. He's probably got, I don't know, $10 or $12 million worth of vehicles that I
Nice.
maintain. And the thing about him is when I first met him, he was very straightforward. Here's my card, put it on file. You'll probably never see me again. I'll have my car ready for you outside when it needs to be washed, and I'll let you know and charge my card and tell me when you leave.
Nice.
And that's the
That sounds
best
like a
thing.
good customer.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have to talk to anybody. I just get a text and show up, which is nice. And then I guess a nightmare customer would be the one that let's see. There was a minivan that came in, Honda Odyssey, and this guy had I think he did a great thing for the world, which it took care of foster kids and stuff. But he lacked on the health department and the cleaning department.
Okay. Yeah. Finding
um,
single cold French fries between the seats.
oh, I think we found a couple dirty diapers, and
Oh,
it was horrible. And
yikes.
the nightmare about that isn't even the cleaning part; it's the after of, oh, it's not perfect. Oh, you didn't. Some
Oh,
people think just because you're paying $300, $400, $500 for your car, they think they're going to get a paint job or
right,
something crazy. And I'm at the end of the day, I can only make it so clean. So those are
right.
the hard customers to like, hey, I'm sorry, you can't do anything else.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's again nature of the business. The squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of saying.
Yep.
Where
Oh
like
yeah.
your guy that's paying top dollar and doesn't even care how much you charge him doesn't say boo, but then the guy who hits you up once every 6 months
Yep.
expects like the greatest job of all time. So I can imagine. Um,
Exactly.
so that being said, I guess more fun question. Like, so what are some of the dopest or most expensive cars that you've dealt with?
Um, I've washed every single car made other than a Pagani and a Bugatti. Um,
Interesting. So you've run the gamut: Ferrari, Lamborghini,
yep.
McLaren, all of them.
Yep, I would have to say, and the cool thing actually about kind of touching on the building relationships thing, the cool thing about that is a lot of my customers have let me drive their cars,
Right.
uh, which is awesome. So a couple months ago, I drove a Lamborghini Aventador, the SVJ.
Nice.
Um, we took it to California because the customer had an emergency and had to fly out there, and he's like, "I won't be back. I need my car. Can you bring it to me?" I was like,
Wow.
"If you're paying." And so we got to drive. We got to drive it there. It was pretty fun.
So you got paid to drive a Lamborghini Aventador to California.
Oh yeah, and he wanted it quick, so he's like, drive it like you stole it, and it was a
Damn.
great time. Yeah, it was a great time.
That's awesome. What a story. What a business. Again, so everybody has these like perks of the job and things they hate, things they love. Like that sounds like a pretty awesome perk of the
Oh
job.
yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, Matt Morgan.
Yep.
So when Matt used to live in Arizona, he ended up becoming kind of like a mentor of mine.
Yeah.
And so I was at his house probably 3 or 4 days a week, and then
Yeah.
I started taking his cars to get oil changes, and I kind of started being his whatever he needed automotive,
Sure.
which was cool. So I got to take his car actually to the racetrack a lot, which was fun, to the Apex.
Nice.
Yeah, that was good.
The black McLaren.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice. Good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we still talk quite a bit today. Him and then obviously Cody, and I think I'm sure you've done a couple of Cody's cars at some point. So
Yeah, we do them about once or twice a week sometimes.
nice.
Yeah,
Right
Cody's
on.
a good guy.
So in this industry and like between business and actually doing your work, right? I mean, like you said, you got 3 vans, you're growing a team, you're doing client relations, you got to do marketing, like all this kind of stuff. What would be like some productivity hacks that you use both? I mean, it could be in the car wash business, but also just like on the business side for like marketing and sales and things like that. What are you doing to kind of, streamline processes and help your operations out?
Um, I would say the biggest thing is just the bottom line is that I set for myself was that helps me is scheduling all my customers. When you're first starting, a lot of people slack on like actually writing things down, putting things on paper and like into a calendar and stuff. And that it took me a long time to like make that a habit. But once I made that a habit, then I was able to have an order of operations every day that, hey, first I come in, I'm going to do this, this, and that. All these people, they have the same order of operations. It's just further down the chain of command, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing is, time management. So like if you have an extra 5 minutes, you're driving somewhere, like if I'm going to Chipotle or something and I see a Lamborghini, stop and put a card on it or,
Yeah.
whatever. So those are the biggest things that have helped me is don't waste the little minutes that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about that, like you said, I mean, now you're continuing to grow, and then like you're getting more clients, and things are building up. What's
Yeah.
your ultimate goal? Like, do you want to be like a statewide? Do you want to be countrywide? I mean, like you said that you work with like, some folks like Wires Only. You've worked with Matt. You've worked with all these guys. Like,
Oh yeah.
you have massive networks all over the country. So, like, what is your vision for one vision, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing I guess would be it's hard to say because there's only so many like the way I've built my name and my brand is like if I come up in a conversation, the conversation is usually like, "Oh, Casey's the one that does all those crazy cars." Like it's never like, "Oh, they're just a normal detailing company."
Right.
We're always an exotic company. Um, so it's hard to, I guess, build it in different cities because you have Miami and LA. And there's like a couple big cities that I could go to. It's just a matter of time of finding that person that's going to put the same effort into it because you can't trust anybody with a McLaren or a
Yeah,
Ferrari or
and that's
something.
that's something we talk about all the time is that like people, it's very hard to grow and scale, certain businesses because you're not going to find somebody that cares as much about your business as you do, right? And unless they're getting paid what they think is worthwhile, then it's hard to trust them. So,
Oh yeah. I have learned detailing is one of those type of companies that at least on the mobile side, like unless you're going to be a car wash, like Cobblestone or like Terribles in Las Vegas or one of those big name car wash companies that everybody knows of, it's never going to be a nationwide thing.
yeah,
I think I'll build it up to be something, and then maybe in 5 or 10 years, I'll probably sell it and move on to something.
okay.
That's actually at least the idea. I have, there's just so much I've realized that it can go to. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
grow it as big as it can get, and then see where the rest of my life takes me.
So you kind of touched on it there a little bit about like the brick and mortars or like, the big name that are like in person, stalwart companies, but like from a
Yeah,
competitive perspective, how do you see that? Because like there are for sure tons of mobile detailing services, right? And there's some that are like under the table. There's some that are legitimate. They're like
yeah.
all over Arizona because of that market. How do you differentiate or stay competitive? And I mean, again, that comes down to marketing. It comes to, your service, all that. Like, what do you do to stay competitive?
The biggest thing to stay competitive is I haven't really changed my prices over the years, to be honest with you. I think I've changed around $10 to $15 since the first day I started, which most detailing companies they won't even give you a basic car wash for like $150.
Yeah.
And I try, if you're close by and I'm not very busy, we're still under $100 just for our
Yeah.
normal inside and out. Um, and we're still going above and beyond. Even we're doing even more than what we're charging.
Yeah.
Um, And I think that's just the biggest thing is, people get a lot of value from our service.
Nice. Okay. And what it's interesting, for me, I always talk or ask this question, and everybody answers it a little bit differently. But like, what's a
Yeah.
common like myth or misconception about your industry? Like, what do I mean? You've touched on a few things where like customers get stuff wrong, but like, what's like one of the bigger myths or misconceptions that people have about mobile detailing or detailing in general?
The thing I hear the most actually, and I get it all the time on social media when I post videos, is people think you can't wash cars out in the sun. I don't know why. It's people have been doing it for hundreds of years, or not hundreds, but however long cars have been around, 1912.
Yeah.
So you can wash, just like you wash your car out of your house in the driveway with a hose and a bucket of soap. It's the same thing. I just do it a lot better.
I get, like I'm from California, and like I think probably the big thing, especially in Arizona here, is that like the hard water is going to leave spots unless you properly, you know what I mean, like unless you have the proper
Exactly.
setup. So
Yeah,
the hard water is going to leave spots regardless unless you're doing it correctly. But
exactly.
I know like back in California, it was like you wash a car, as long as you dried it quick enough, like there was no worry about soap spots and stuff. I think people here think that like you wash the car and you're just gonna, it's impossible because it's so hot, it dries so fast. There's no way that you could, chamois it or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. And that's another thing. We use I use special water, so we use deionized spot free water.
Yeah.
So it's 100% like pure water. There's no minerals, no nothing. It's just
Got it.
100% water,
Okay.
which is nice. That helps. That's probably the biggest helping factor. That and then back down to the order of operations. I have it down to a science to where sometimes I can wash a car inside and out in 20 minutes, which
Yeah, and which again, if you
yeah,
can, we were talking before you got on this call, like when it's 115 in the afternoon, you want to be done by by like noon or 1 if you can, I'm sure.
oh
So,
yeah, exactly.
um, so let's talk about over your career now. What's one of the like biggest lessons? Again, you said you've had failures, you had bad business deals. Like, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned in that time?
The biggest lesson I would have to say is staying consistent and being thorough with everything you do. Always look at everything and every option or every angle that you can, instead of just looking at it one dimensional or one direction. You kind of want to try your best to see everything from every angle as best you can. I
Yeah,
would say,
perspective. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Being able to, I mean, I think a lot of people, it's hard for them to step in other people's shoes. It's hard for them to look at it from multiple angles. So that's definitely valuable.
oh yeah,
Especially, I mean, I do it myself in marketing. It's really hard. Like I know what I like, but sometimes I'm working with companies or brands, and it's like I'm not their target audience. I kind of got
yeah,
to step out of my own shoes
exactly, yep,
and be, if I'm marketing to 50-plus-year-old women, I got to think of what a 50-plus-year-old woman would like. So
exactly, yep.
yeah, definitely a hard thing to do in marketing for sure.
Yeah, you got to
Um,
think about that a lot because the car industry is so many different people is ridiculous. So you have to think of all of them, big
yeah,
time.
no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you ever get, I want to hear, there has to be a story of just a horrendous experience, but not to say that like you were going to blows with somebody, but where they're like, you messed this up, or you, like, what do you do for that? Because obviously, like, you're insured and bonded or whatever as a business, but like,
Yeah.
there's people that are going to tell you owe me 5 grand, you scuffed this, right? Like,
Yeah, there's uh I guess there's one particular one that comes to mind first. This guy's he actually ended up 5 or 3 years later after we butted heads so much. He ended up coming back to me as a customer. But he had a Lamborghini Aventador a few years ago. He doesn't have the same car anymore, but he the front of the Lamborghini Aventador, the model at least that he had one of those carbon fiber lips or splitters on the front. Um, and one thing I learned from the person that I tried to franchise from, like one of the best things he ever taught me, was to always take pictures and videos of the car before you start.
yeah,
Um, so I do a walk around video inside and out. If there's scratches or dents, whatever it is, just because it's $1 million car doesn't mean it's not perfect.
Yep.
So I always do that. And one day I sent my brother over there because I think I was out of town or something. And he had one of the super angled driveways, so you had to go up it sideways and all crazy. It was a pain in the ass to get his car in the garage. And the next day he calls me and goes, "Hey, someone cracked the front splitter of the Lambo." And he's like, "It's like 12 grand to fix. I need you to pay for it." And I'm like, "Okay, let me give me like 5 minutes. I know I have a picture of your car somewhere, like over the last couple of years. Let me find it." And I found it, and I zoomed in, and it wasn't. Luckily, I could. The camera was clear enough to where you could see the chip was already there. He must have like hit a, one of those parking curbs in a parking
Right,
lot or
right, right,
something.
right, right.
And it's not something. It was on the top of it too. It wasn't something you would have like scraped.
Right.
Um, and so he went back and forth. No, you're paying for it. You're paying for it. Like I can't afford 12,000 right now. Blah blah blah. All this stuff and back and
Yeah, but
forth.
my detailing business, no problem. Like, well,
Yeah.
12.
And so I ended up just telling him straight out, dude, this picture is, luckily iPhones say the date of when you took the
Right.
picture. So honestly, dude, there's nothing you can do. You could go find another detailing company. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
obviously I'm not like cursing at him and stuff. But
sure.
yeah, try to keep it as professional as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, man. Like and it happens in every business, whether it's a service based, it could be a product, right? People, oh, you didn't, this is not what you promised, etc. I mean, will always happen. That touches on a good point about marketing and stuff too, though, is like reviews, right? So
Oh yeah.
do you leverage reviews quite a bit? I mean, like there's Google reviews, I don't know, obviously probably not using Yelp too
Yeah.
much because it's more restaurants and stuff, but like in general, I mean, like Google reviews, Trustpilot, there's all these different things. Do you kind of focus on that a lot too?
Yeah, Google reviews are probably my biggest one. I first started with Yelp, but then I quickly realized Yelp sucks. I'm sorry, but
That's
I will
popular, right?
boycott Yelp forever. but Google's the best because first thing you do when oh, my car's dirty. Where's the closest car wash?
Right.
Or detail service. So that's the biggest one. So you want to be ranked really high on there. So more 5-star reviews you have, the higher ranked you are.
Yep. Absolutely. And obviously like SEO and website building and all that, like my agency, we do that as well. It's really, I don't want to say that it's undervalued because a lot of people say that they want to do it and a lot of people like they realize how important it is. I
Oh
just
yeah.
think that a lot of people don't have the patience and the understanding of how to actually make it work for you.
Oh yeah.
And again, it's a mix of business listings, reviews, uh oh my god, sorry. So it's a mix of things, like it's reviews, it's link backs, it's all different kinds of elements of marketing that go into getting a proper search result and really getting yourself found. The other thing that people don't really think about is what are those people searching. Like I said earlier, we have to step out of your own comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's not always that people just type in one vision detail service or just detail service. Sometimes they're like, I need my Lamborghini washed, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to rank for Lamborghini washed. You know what I mean? Like there's other words and search terms that you got to kind of think outside the box. I mean, I've even seen people go and look at keywords or sorry, hold on. Say it one more time.
No, you're good.
I've even seen people, they look at it and they're like trying to rank for misspelled words because like if somebody says auto detail service but spelled DETIAL, right? Just a slip of the fingers,
Yep.
their stuff still comes up. Like, I mean, people could be maniacal about it. But
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, people use Google, like that is their thing. Like I have no idea what we did before Google, but
oh yeah. No, you have to be really creative with it. I think I go through the cool thing actually now, which is helping a lot of technology is the AI is you type in what are the top 100 keywords people are searching for detailing
right.
or car washes, and it automatically generates it all now.
Yep,
Which is pretty
absolutely.
cool.
And that's, we talk about that too in marketing. You're going to have this kind of transition where it's not necessarily that AI is going to take over, but it's people that know how to use AI are going to take over, right? Like people who are really good at manipulating and understanding scripts and knowing how to get the most out of the AI is who's going to win, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Well, so I guess another like one little thing before we start to wrap up is you work with like celebs, athletes, etc. What's it again, you said network and things, but like, did it kind of start with like a local in terms of like, the Arizona Cardinals or somebody like that, and then it just blossoms? Or, for people who are wanting to work with other high net worth individuals, like what would you advise them about building or reaching out or getting into that type of clientele?
Um, the biggest thing to get into that clientele, I would say, is the guerrilla marketing is what really got me in there. Like I said before, I worked at the nightclubs and stuff in Scottsdale. And there's nightclubs all over the country. You could, or places where there's high end people. But what I did is I was a runner or bar back there. So anytime someone would come in and spend $20,000 or $30,000 on alcohol, I'm like, this guy must have some type of nice car, no matter if he could afford it or not.
Yeah.
Um, and the biggest thing is, it may take 10 or 15 people or, until you get that one person that says yes, which,
Right.
I'm sure you hear that all the time is there's going to be a million no's, but it's the one yes that matters.
Yeah.
And I had one yes, and the guy in Scottsdale helped me out. There was a big old Ponzi scheme called Zima Digital Assets. And even though it was a Ponzi scheme and they were, tricking everyone, they had the nicest cars in town.
Yeah.
So the fact that at the time there wasn't any car, there was the only one in town. So it's like, oh my God, that's a $2 million car. I never seen one. So I started posting that online, and the word kind of got out like, oh, Casey's doing the nicest cars in town now.
Got
And
it.
it was kind of a snowball effect from there.
And fair enough. Like, it's not like you had anything to do with it. Someone asked you to wash their car, right? Now, however they make
Yeah,
their money, that's not really your problem.
exactly. Yeah,
But that being said,
Yeah.
again, I think a lot of it's like appearances, right? And it's, perception is reality. So if people see nice cars, they see you handling nice cars, then you must be the guy that washes the nice cars, right? And so next thing you know, that makes a lot of sense. It just, yeah, that was an unfortunate time in this
Oh
city.
yeah,
But
yeah. We invested in
cool.
that.
Yeah. I mean,
That's cool.
we all had people I think that we knew. So
Yep. Yeah, that sucked.
um so we get to this point, we always ask, like, I've been asking you questions this whole time. Is there anything that you want to ask me?
I would say what's the biggest difference you would say that you see people make when it goes in marketing for, a company that goes from a small business to someone that's, making a couple million a year? What's the biggest things that you see that they're doing different?
So when and effectively you're talking about scaling, and I think that ultimately it just comes down to investment, and that doesn't necessarily mean dollars. It means time. It means putting all that energy and effort into really, being consistent, committing to what you're doing. Like, you can't just all of a sudden say, "Oh, I want to start a vlog or a podcast," and then you go a couple weeks and then drop it for a couple. Like, you gotta commit, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I see the biggest success out of people who have found what they want to do, and they just kind of put their foot on the gas and keep going, right? Not
Yeah.
giving up. And it's hard. Again, if it was that easy, everybody would do it. And as much as you try to tell a client, as much as you try to tell somebody, be patient, be patient, be patient, a lot of people will just give up, right? If they don't
Yeah.
see instant results, if they don't see something right away, they get frustrated or they try to jump around. So on the flip side, what I see where people fail all the time
Mhm.
is they want to try new things and throw money at things, but then they give up too quickly. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like, it'll be like a month, and then they're like, "Oh, this didn't work." Well, you only gave it 30 days. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
my big advice there is just be consistent, commit, and don't quit. Don't give up on things too early.
No, it definitely makes sense for sure. And you see it all the time happen. People give up. It
Yep.
takes 5, 10 years, 15 years to build great things. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, I saw a thing. I forget who it was. I think it was like Ice Cube or something. He was giving advice on business, and he's like, plan on doing it for 5 years without ever making a dollar. And he didn't
Yeah.
mean like make a dollar as in no revenue. He meant like without really taking profits, right? Like, you're
Mhm.
going to do something for 5 years and it could just break even, or you could just be barely getting by. And after 5 years, then evaluate.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, for
So,
sure.
yeah, right on.
Oh yeah.
Well, thanks again, Casey, for joining me. I want to give my big shout out to High Level. It's a fantastic marketing software that I use to build all my businesses. They support us here. Great affiliate program that I've been a part of now. Shout out to them. There's a link in the bio, link in this video if you want to check them out. Casey, thank you again. Appreciate you for coming
Anytime.
on. Casey Cooper, One Vision Detail.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you soon.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. Peace out.